Hi everybody, today's video is all about a common problem that most dog owners will face at some point in time in their life, and it has to do with why their dog hates the backyard. And what I want to do today is cover some of the more common causes of the behaviour, and more importantly give you some no-nonsense straight up solutions to help you resolve it. I'm Claude from Canine IQ Dog Obedience and Behaviour Modification, the home of science-based factual information on dog training. If you're new to the site and you like the content, please hit the subscribe button, but more importantly, hit the bell notification. That way you don't miss any new content that we put up in the future. If you're a regular visitor to the YouTube channel, really appreciate your support. It makes a big difference. Thanks again. So the video today is all about the problems that most of us will face at some point in time, and that is having a dog that does not enjoy being in the backyard. Now this is quite normal because dogs are pack animals and want to be with us, and I'm sure all of us would like to have a dog that when we leave it at home, it's just happy lying in the sun and just enjoying its own time and space, and it's not stressing out, and then when we come home it's actually enjoying our company even more. The problem with achieving this is life gets in the way. We're professionals, we work, we're tradies, we do all sorts of stuff, and we're away from morning till night, and the dogs have to adjust, and then we've got social commitments. How do we go about helping the dogs in these situations to get more confident and independent and to actually enjoy being left in the backyard? So let's look at some of the more common reasons why dogs effectively don't like being left in the backyard. So if you're like most people, most dogs would effectively be sleeping inside the house. So people get up in the morning, they'll take their dog for a walk or maybe go to the park, throw the ball. Then they come home, they might give the dog a bit of a meal or a food treat. They're getting ready for work, so the dog sees you getting changed into different clothes, putting on different perfume which got a certain smell. Now all of these are predictive things that tell the dog that you're about to leave. And then we put the dog out, and all of a sudden the dog is now left outside from morning till night, in a place that it effectively associates with not much fun activity or a toilet. And effectively what we're doing to the dog is we're saying, well, apart from this being a toilet, it's now a waiting room where you're needing to just occupy yourself and amuse yourself until I come home. And then to further complicate the issue, we come home from work, and a lot of people, the first thing they do is bring the dog inside. They might do a bit of fun games or chilling out with the dogs, or throw balls or play tug of war, or just have a bit of fun inside the house with the dog because they've missed it and they want to spend some quality time with the dog. And then some of us, what we might do is actually start to take the dog for a walk. And those two things are potentially the worst possible things you can do, because you've really accentuated the stark difference between being left outside on its own, you've come home and now you've brought it inside the house, which is now fun, and you've taken the dog for a walk. Now, dogs are really contextual. They feel a particular way in a certain environment. And the last thing that we want the dogs to feel is that the backyard is effectively a waiting room or a toilet. So if we play this through a little bit, and we've effectively said to the dog that that backyard's not a lot of fun and we've brought it in. So by association, the house is now fun compared to the backyard, and it's warm and it's safe and it's stable and it smells of us and it's a really cool place. And then all of a sudden, if we take the dog for a walk, then the street might even be more stimulating and interesting than the house, because the dog's now going for a walk and it's sniffing on everything. And you go to the park and you might be throwing a ball or a frisbee in the park, or it might be playing with the other dogs. So by association, the street is amazing. The house probably isn't quite as amazing in the street, and the backyard compared to all three is terrible. Now that's effectively a problem, because we're in turn creating a dog that really wants to escape out of that backyard and come into the house, which is why dogs that have got certain separation issues that are pretty pronounced might be scratching at glass or destroying fly screens to get inside the house. Or you might have a dog that's an escape artist, in which case all it's trying to do is to get out of the backyard to go to the place that's the most amount of fun, which is the street or the local parks. We need to change this if we're trying to get the dog to enjoy the backyard. So now that we've identified the causes, what are the solutions? And effectively the solutions are quite simple if we think about them in a structured sense. If the backyard at the moment is a place that the dog doesn't enjoy being, and it's needing to spend a lot of its time there, we need to make the backyard a highly enjoyable place. So what I try and do with the way I approach separation or dependency-based behaviours, the environment that I need my dog to be independent or away from me need to be the most stimulating for my dog to be in. And a really simple thing to do is to make your backyard effectively Disneyland on steroids. And the first way to start doing that is simply feeding your dog in the backyard. Now, some of us already do that, but if you feed your dog inside the house, just move the process to the backyard and spend a bit of time with your dog while it's eating. If we randomize when we're feeding the dog, sometimes it's in the morning, sometimes at night, and we're spending time with it while it's eating and it's actually in that backyard, we're dealing with the fact of we're around the dog while it's eating, so we're targeting the resource guarding potentially. And we're also now spending quality time in the environment that we actually want the dog to enjoy being in, as opposed to hating it. So feeding your dog in the backyard is a great starting point. The next thing that we can do is to shift where we play games with the dogs to the backyard. Now, most of us will take our dogs to the park and we might throw a ball or a frisbee, or we let the dogs run around with other dogs in the park. If we take that activity and now move it into the backyard, where the backyard now becomes a source of really cool fun. My backyard is really small. It's about 5 meters by 10 meters, and I've got a working German Shepherd. Now, he would much rather be in that backyard playing with me than in the street or the park, because the backyard is where we do scent detection. The backyard is where I throw a tennis ball. The backyard is where I throw a frisbee. And even though it's a small space, he still gets to sprint, chase and jump and do all the really cool fun stuff. So his association with that backyard is I get fed there and I get played with there, and it all happens quite regularly but randomly, and it happens to be this amazing place of interaction. So simply shifting where we play with the dog is a really important thing. The other thing that we need to do is to not make the backyard a place where we do any hard work. Disneyland is fun. It's not meant to be a place of work. So I don't do any heavy duty obedience work with my dog at all in that backyard. He goes out there and he knows the pressure is off. It's purely about enjoyment. He's on holiday. It's the most amazing place. So I save all my obedience for different environments, and I'll get to that one next. But that backyard should be a place where it's completely fun and devoid of any stress or pressure or any hard work. So let's talk about the house. So if the backyard is now fun, we need to make the house itself not as much fun as the backyard. So how do we do that? A really cool way to do that is to make the house like a classroom for a child. This is the environment that we start to teach the dog the skills that we want it to use in the street. Simple things like getting the dog to be in a sit and dealing with pressure and movement and activity and building the duration of the sit. So that you could end up having a 20-minute sit with lots of activity, or doing a drop or a downstay where the dog is actually learning to process lots of different distractions. These are the environments that we need to get the dog to do. Practice it inside the house and learn how to build pressure and stress, and learn how to deal with pressure and stress in the context of being inside the house. So then all of a sudden the dog goes, look, being inside the house is fun, but it's definitely not as much fun as being with you outside. It will always want to be in the house because that's where we are, but all of a sudden it would prefer to be outside with you. So giving the dog some structured work to do in the house is an important thing. Not playing with your dog in the house is definitely important, and playing with the dog outside, like I said, is an important thing. The next part of making the house less interesting for the dog is to have a passive version of interaction with us, and that's where getting the dog to be on its mat or in its crate and knowing that it has to come inside the house and relax is an important thing. Those of you that have got children or young kids, you probably let them run around and kick a football or throw balls or play soccer in that backyard. And as soon as the children come inside the house, they know that there are rules and they have to tone down their behavior. The same should happen for dogs. So when dogs come inside the house, they know that I've got to relax, I've got to calm down a bit. There's no excitement, definitely no games. So getting the dogs to do prolonged stays on their bed is a good thing too, in conjunction with all the obedience. The third part about this is trying to downplay the importance of going for a walk or going outside. So the backyard is Disneyland. The house is not as much fun as the backyard. Now we need to make the street and the park not as much fun as the house, and definitely not as much fun as the backyard. So my advice to people is to use the skills that you've developed with your dog inside the house, apply them on the street. So if you've got a busy environment where there's a lot of traffic and a lot of activity, get your dog to sit, get it to watch all the traffic and movement, get your dog to drop, get it to watch the people moving up and down the street. If you're seeing dogs walking and barking, get your dog to sit and watch them. So now we're using the street or the environment as a way to actually get the dog to deal with real life situations and real life pressure. as opposed to doing all the fun things that you would have normally been doing, like throwing a tennis ball or a frisbee. Those are the things that we are now saving for the backyard. So all of a sudden the dog's got 3 clearly defined environments that all have a different way that they make them feel. The street is stressful because there's a lot of things that we can't control, so we need our dogs to be on their game. The house is an environment where we're shaping the behavior that we want them to apply on the street, and that backyard is the place that there's no pressure. It's absolutely fun. If we do that as a transition, you'll find that the dog will start to enjoy being in that backyard as opposed to the other 2 environments, and the dog will never want to leave it. Why would anybody want to leave Disneyland if they enjoy being there? Simple common sense stuff, but a lot of people don't think about it in those points of view. So in summary, the backyard should be the most amazing place on the planet for the dog. If we want the dog to spend most of its time there when we're not home, it has to be a source of interaction and fun simply by how it makes a dog feel as opposed to that waiting room feeling. The house then by virtue should be a place where the dog goes, yes, I'll spend time with you, and we are a little bit more passive than that backyard, so by association it's not as much fun. And the street by virtue of being an environment that we really can't control what happens next. The dog needs to be on its game and actually being ready to deal with the pressures of life. So if we follow those 3 procedures, you'll actually have a dog that's really comfortable being in that backyard. Thanks again for watching the video through to the end, folks. Really appreciate it. There's a lot of information. I'm sure that will generate a lot of questions and a lot of comments. So if you have any questions about anything that I said, please feel free to leave me a comment. And if you've got a few concerns that you might find any of this troubling, definitely I want to hear from you. Leave me a comment as well. As always, folks, thank you very much for your attention and visiting my YouTube channel. Really appreciate your support. So did you like the content? If so, please hit the subscribe, like and share button, and don't forget to hit the bell button for future notifications of any new videos. Thanks for watching.